The war was over, but peace was harder than anyone expected. Human forces occupied Velkar worlds across dozens of systems. Millions of aliens waited to learn their fate. Would humanity show mercy or revenge? Chancellor Yunji-O stood before the Terran Federation Council. Representatives from every human colony filled the chamber. The question before them was simple but terrible. What should humanity do with the Velkar? "They tried to exterminate us," shouted one representative. "They killed billions of our people. They deserve the same fate. If we kill them all, we become monsters," argued another. "We fought to survive, not to become genocidal." The debate lasted for weeks. Some wanted complete destruction of the Velkar species. Others wanted them enslaved as punishment. A few, including Dr. Suman Lee, argued for something different: integration and coexistence. The Velkar believed we were too chaotic to exist, Suman told the council. If we proved them right by committing genocide, what was the point of winning? We need to show that humans can be better. Yunji listened to all sides. She thought about Grand Admiral Jiho Park, who had spent his life fighting but never lost his humanity. She thought about Admiral Jiwan Nam, who sacrificed herself to save Earth. She thought about what kind of galaxy she wanted to leave for future generations. "We will not become what they feared," Yunji announced. "The Velkar will face justice for their crimes, but we will offer mercy to those who surrender peacefully." The decision was controversial. Many humans felt betrayed. They had lost loved ones and wanted revenge. But Yunji stood firm. A war crimes tribunal was established to judge Velkar leadership. High Imperator Vrekthal was the first to stand trial. He remained defiant, showing no remorse for ordering humanity's extinction. "I did what was necessary," he stated. "Your species was a threat to galactic order. I was correct, and your victory proves it." The tribunal found him guilty of genocide and crimes against sentient beings. The sentence was life imprisonment rather than execution. Vrekthal laughed at this. "You are weak. This mercy will destroy you." But humanity was not weak. They were making a choice about who they wanted to be. Sentinel Krevnak became the bridge between the two species. He led a faction of Velkar who accepted defeat and wanted peace. Not all Velkar agreed with him. Some called him a traitor. Others tried to assassinate him. But Krevnak believed surrender was the only way his species could survive. He organized a ceremony that would be broadcast across both human and Velkar space. 10,000 Velkar representatives would formally submit to the Terran Federation. The ceremony would include the traditional Velkar gesture of absolute surrender. The ceremony took place on Earth, in the rebuilt capital city. Humans gathered by the millions to watch. Velkar across the galaxy watched through their communications networks. This moment would define the future. Krevnak led the Velkar representatives into the plaza. They wore simple robes, having removed all symbols of military rank. The crowd was silent. Some humans in the audience cried, remembering loved ones killed by these aliens. Others felt conflicted, unsure if this was justice or weakness. Grand Admiral Jiho Park stood on the platform, ancient now at 75 but still commanding respect. Beside him stood Chancellor Yunji-O. Around them were veterans of the war, including Captain Minho Choi, Engineer Hyejin Yoon, Dr. Suman Lee, and Commander Junho Lee. Krevnak approached the platform. In his own language, which was translated for everyone, he spoke. "The Velkar Empire declared war on humanity 15 years ago. We believed you were inferior and chaotic. We were wrong. You have defeated us completely. By the ancient laws of my people, the defeated must acknowledge the superior. Today we acknowledge that humans have surpassed us." Then Krevnak and all 10,000 Velkar representatives performed the gesture. They knelt and placed their foreheads on the ground, exposing their necks in complete submission. It was the ultimate surrender in Velkar culture. They remained in that position, waiting for judgment. Jiho Park stepped forward. His voice was tired but strong. "The Velkar Empire tried to destroy humanity. They failed. We could destroy them in return. Many of you want that. But I ask you to remember something. We did not fight to become destroyers. We fought to survive. We fought to protect our future. He paused, looking at the kneeling aliens. The Velkar called us chaotic and unpredictable. They were right. We are chaotic because we feel emotions they cannot understand. We are unpredictable because we can choose mercy even when revenge would be easier. That is not weakness. That is what makes us human. Jiho turned to face the cameras broadcasting to the galaxy. To all Velkar listening, I offer you a choice. You can join the Terran Federation as citizens. You will have rights and freedoms. You will be judged as individuals, not as a collective. Or you can live separately in peace, but if you threaten humanity again, there will be no mercy, no second chances. We have proven we can defend ourselves. We are also proving we can choose peace. The plaza erupted in mixed reactions. Some cheered, believing mercy was right. Others shouted in anger, feeling justice had been denied. But the decision was made. The Terran-Velkar Accord was signed the next day. Velkar who accepted the terms would be integrated into Federation society. Those who refused would be relocated to designated systems where they could live separately. War criminals would face justice, but ordinary Velkar would be given a chance at peace. Over the following years, something unexpected happened. The integration worked better than anyone predicted. Velkar technology combined with human innovation created breakthroughs in science and medicine. Mixed communities formed where humans and Velkar lived together. Not everyone accepted this. There were terrorist attacks by both human extremists and Velkar loyalists. Chancellor Yunji survived 3 assassination attempts, but slowly, peace became stronger than hate. Dr. Suman Lee established the Unity Institute, dedicated to building understanding between species. She worked with reformed Velkar scientists to study how different types of consciousness could cooperate. Her work won her recognition across the galaxy. Captain Minho Choi struggled to find purpose after the war. For 15 years, his only goal had been killing Velkar. Without that mission, he felt empty. He disappeared into the outer colonies, unable to live in the peaceful society he had fought to create. Some said he still flew the Phoenix Echo, protecting remote settlements from raiders. Others believed he had died alone in space. Engineer Heejin Yoon continued pushing technology forward. She led the first faster-than-light expedition beyond the galaxy, opening new frontiers for both humans and Velkar explorers. She never married, never had children. Her ships and inventions were her legacy. Commander Junho Lee and his Reaper Corps disbanded after the war. Many of them could not adjust to civilian life. Junho tried to help them, but some were too damaged by what they had done in the war. He established support programs for veterans, but it never felt like enough. Soo-hyun Baek, the ascended pilot, found an unexpected calling. She became an instructor at the Federation Academy, teaching both human and Velkar students. Her former enemies now learned from her. Some human pilots resented having to train alongside Velkar. Soo-hyun told them, "I killed 89 Velkar in combat. I have earned the right to decide they are not all my enemies." 5 years after the war ended, a monument was erected on Earth. It listed the names of every human who died in the war. Below those names, in smaller letters, were the names of Velkar casualties. Both were remembered as victims of a terrible conflict. Grand Admiral Jiho Park attended the monument's dedication. He was 80 now and knew he did not have much time left. He stood before the memorial with Sentinel Krevnak beside him. "Do you think we made the right choice?" Krevnak asked. "Showing mercy?" Jiho thought about all the people who had died. He thought about the victories and the losses. He thought about what humanity had become through 15 years of total war. "I don't know," he admitted. War crimes were committed by both sides. People who deserved justice did not receive it. Others who deserved punishment were forgiven. Peace is messy and imperfect. "But?" Krevnak prompted. "But we are still here," Jiho said. "Both of us. Our species will move forward together or separately, but they will move forward. That is better than extinction." 3 years later, Jiho Park died peacefully in his sleep. Millions attended his funeral, including thousands of Velkar who had learned to respect the old warrior. He was remembered as humanity's greatest defender, the man who led them from the edge of extinction to galactic dominance. Chancellor Yunjio served 3 terms and then retired. Under her leadership, the Terran Federation became the most powerful political entity in the galaxy. She was remembered for having the courage to choose mercy when revenge would have been easier. The Velkar species survived and slowly rebuilt their culture. Many younger Velkar grew up in the Federation and considered themselves as much human as Velkar. They were something new, shaped by both species. Old Vrekthal died in prison, still believing he had been right. No one mourned him except a few fanatics. History remembered him as the leader who had destroyed his own empire through pride and hatred. The war had entered its 15th year, and the map of the galaxy had changed completely. Red markers showing human control spread across dozens of star systems. Blue markers showing Velkar territory shrank with each passing month. The hunters had become the hunted. Chancellor Yunji led the Terran Federation from the new capital on Earth. She was a skilled diplomat who had spent years coordinating between the different human colonies and military forces. Now she faced a different challenge. How do you rule an empire built on survival and revenge? Our forces are pushing into Velkar core territory, reported Commander Junho Lee. He led the Reaper Corps, special forces units that conducted missions deep behind enemy lines. His teams were ghosts that terrified the Velkar. We've destroyed 3 shipyards this month alone. Yunji looked at the tactical displays. Human fleets were everywhere in Velkar space now. The aliens were retreating on all fronts. What about civilian casualties? Junho's expression hardened. The Velkar don't evacuate their civilians before we arrive. They use them as shields. We've tried to minimize deaths, but war is war. This troubled Unji. The Velkar had shown humans no mercy. They had bombed cities and killed billions. Part of her wanted to return that cruelty. But another part remembered what they were supposed to be fighting for. If humans became like the Velkar, what was the point of winning? Dr. Sumin Lee had perfected a new weapon specifically designed to exploit Velkar biology. The neural disruptor sent out waves that interfered with the Velkar hive mind connections. When hit by the weapon, Velkar soldiers lost their coordination. They became confused and disoriented, making them easy targets. The first use of the neural disruptor happened during the Battle of Velkar Station 9. Human forces attacked a major military base protected by thousands of Velkar troops. When the disruptor activated, the defenders fell into chaos. Soldiers fired at each other by mistake. Officers gave contradictory orders. The base fell in hours instead of weeks. The weapon was incredibly effective but also controversial. Some human commanders called it inhumane because it caused psychological damage to the Velkar. Others argued that the Velkar had lost the right to mercy when they tried to exterminate humanity. Captain Minho Choi, still raiding with the Phoenix Echo, had become something of a legend. His ship had been rebuilt so many times that almost nothing remained of the original vessel. But the name stayed the same, and so did its purpose. Minho hunted Velkar ships with the same dedication he had shown for 15 years. His crew noticed that Minho had changed. He rarely smiled. He spoke only when necessary. At night, they heard him talking to people who were not there. The war had taken everything from him except the ability to fight. Without the war, he had nothing. Sentinel Krevnak commanded a Velkar battle group on the frontier. Unlike most Velkar, he had spent years fighting humans and had learned to respect them. He saw how they adapted to every situation. He watched them turn losses into victories. He understood something his superiors refused to accept. The Velkar were going to lose this war. When human forces attacked his system, Krevnak followed his orders and fought back. His ships engaged the enemy with their usual precision. But when the neural disruptor activated and his forces fell into confusion, he saw the future clearly. The Velkar could not win against an enemy that kept creating new weapons and tactics. That night, Krevnak did something no Velkar had ever done. He sent a secret message to the human fleet. He wanted to negotiate a surrender. Grand Admiral Jiho Park, now 70 years old and moving slowly, received the message with suspicion. It could be a trap, but it could also be an opportunity. He agreed to meet with Krevnak under heavy security. The meeting happened on a neutral station. Krevnak arrived with only 2 guards. Jiho brought 20 soldiers, including several ascended warriors. They faced each other across a table. "Why do you want to surrender?" Jiho asked. Krevnak's translator device converted his words to human language.
"Because I am not blind."
"My people believed humans were weak because you were chaotic. We were wrong. Your chaos is strength. You adapt, you innovate, you never give up. We cannot win against that. Your High Imperator might disagree. Frekthal is a fanatic. He would rather see the Empire burn than admit defeat. But many Velkar see the truth. If you promise mercy, many would surrender." Jiho considered this carefully. "We'll discuss your offer with our leadership." Chancellor Yunji faced the hardest decision of her career. The Velkar were offering to surrender portions of their empire, but some human leaders wanted complete victory. They wanted to see the Velkar homeworld burn like Earth had burned. "If we show mercy, some will call us weak," argued one general. "If we show cruelty, we become what they thought we were," Yunji replied. "We need to decide what kind of civilization we want to be." The debate raged for weeks. Finally, Yunji made her choice. She offered the Velkar terms: surrender and face justice for war crimes or fight to extinction. There would be no middle ground. High Imperator Vrekthal, recovering from his injuries but still commanding the Velkar military, rejected the offer immediately. "The Velkar do not kneel to inferior species. We will fight until the last ship falls." His words sealed the fate of the Velkar Empire. The human military prepared for the final campaign. The target was Velkara Prime, the Velkar homeworld. The Battle of Velkara Prime was the largest space battle in galactic history. Over 15,000 ships from both sides clashed in orbit around the gray and blue planet. The sky above Velkara turned into a field of fire and death. Commander Junho Lee led Reaper Corps teams to the surface in stealth transports. Their mission was to disable the planetary shields so the fleet could provide support to ground forces. They fought through Velkar military bases, using their ascended abilities and superior tactics to overcome defenders. In space, the battle raged with terrible intensity. Ships died by the hundreds. Both sides poured everything into the fight. Then something unexpected happened. Sentinel Krevnak's battle group, positioned on the Velkar right flank, stopped firing at human ships. Instead, they turned their weapons on their own allies. "This is Sentinel Krevnak to all Velkar forces. High Imperator Vrekthal has led us to ruin. I will not follow him to extinction. All ships that value the survival of our species, join me." Dozens of Velkar ships followed his lead. The defection tore a hole in the Velkar defensive line. Human forces poured through the gap and reached the planetary shields. When Junho's team disabled the generators, human ships entered the atmosphere. Grand Admiral Jiho Park commanded the ground assault personally, despite his age. He wanted to look Rekthal in the eyes when the Empire fell. Human forces landed by the millions and fought toward the Imperial Palace. The Velkar defenders fought with desperate courage. They knew this was the end. Many chose to die rather than surrender. The streets of the capital city ran with blood from both species. Inside the Imperial Palace, Rekthal made his final decision. If he could not have victory, no one would. He activated a doomsday device buried deep beneath the planet. In 1 hour, it would destroy Velkara Prime and everyone on it. Suhyun Baek, now a decorated commander of ascended forces, learned about the device from captured Velkar officers. She led a strike team into the palace depths to find and disable it. The team fought through automated defenses and fanatic guards. They reached the device chamber with 3 minutes remaining. Suhyun's enhanced mind processed the alien technology at incredible speed. Her hands moved faster than human eyes could follow. With 30 seconds left, she found the right combination. The device powered down. Jiho's forces captured Rekthal in his throne room. The High Imperator stood defiant even in defeat. "You may have won, but you proved us right. You are chaos. You are destruction." Jiho looked at the alien who had caused so much suffering. He thought about all the people who had died. He thought about what humanity had become in this war. "Maybe we are," he said quietly. "But we're alive, and your empire is ashes." The Velkar homeworld fell. The empire that had threatened to exterminate humanity now faced its own extinction. But what happened next would define not just the end of the war, but the future of the entire galaxy. The hidden colony worlds had been growing in silence for 6 years. What started as desperate refugee camps had become industrial centers. Humans worked day and night building ships, weapons, and hope. They had learned from every piece of captured Velkar technology. Now they were ready to return the favor. Admiral Jiwon Nam stood on the bridge of the Defiant, the first human warship built with hybrid technology. It combined human creativity with Velkar engineering. The result was a ship that could match the aliens in speed and firepower. Behind her, 40 more ships of the new Third Fleet waited for orders. "All ships prepare for jump," Jiwon commanded. She was young for an admiral, only 32, but she had fought the Velkar since the first day of the war. She knew their tactics better than they knew themselves. The fleet jumped into the Proxima system, where a Velkar mining operation was stripping a planet of resources. The aliens detected the human ships immediately and moved to intercept. 20 Velkar warships against 41 human vessels. In the early days of the war, this would have been a suicide mission. Today it was different. The Velkar formed their standard battle formation, a sphere that allowed them to fire in all directions while protecting each other. It was logical, efficient, and completely predictable. Jiwon smiled. "Execute Chaos Pattern 7, she ordered. The human fleet broke into 5 groups that moved in seemingly random directions. Some ships charged straight at the Velkar. Others flew away as if retreating. A third group circled around the flanks. The Velkar collective mind struggled to decide which threat to address first. In that moment of hesitation, the humans struck. Ships that appeared to be retreating suddenly reversed and fired. The flanking groups hit the Velkar formation from 3 sides at once. The direct assault group punched through the sphere's weak point that Jiwon had identified from years of studying their tactics. The Velkar formation collapsed into chaos. Human weapons, improved with lessons learned from captured technology, tore through Velkar shields. Missiles found their targets. Energy beams cut through hulls. In 20 minutes, 12 Velkar warships were destroyed. The rest retreated in confusion. It was humanity's first major victory. News spread across all human colonies like wildfire. The Velkar could be beaten. The tide was turning. Dr. Taeyang Kim worked in a secret laboratory on one of the colony worlds. His research was controversial. He proposed making humans stronger through genetic modification and cybernetic enhancements. Many people called it unethical. Taeyang called it necessary. "We're fighting an enemy that's biologically superior in almost every way," he argued to the Colonial Council. "They're stronger, faster, and live longer. If we want to win, we need to be better than we are." After months of debate, the Council approved his ascension protocol for military volunteers only. Soldiers could choose to undergo the enhancements. Many did. They were willing to become something more than human if it meant saving humanity. The first to volunteer was fighter pilot Soo-hyun Baek. She was already one of the best pilots in the fleet with 37 confirmed kills. The procedures took 3 months and nearly killed her twice. Her body was enhanced with synthetic muscle fiber. Her nervous system was augmented with neural processors. Her eyes were replaced with advanced sensors. When Soo-hyun emerged from the medical center, she was no longer entirely human. She was faster, stronger, and her reflexes were 3 times quicker than before. In her first combat mission after the enhancement, she destroyed 5 Velkar fighters in 2 minutes. The enemy pilots could not track her movements. She was too fast. Other pilots underwent the protocol. Within a year, humanity had 200 ascended pilots. They became the nightmare of every Velkar in space. The aliens had never faced enemies that could match their physical capabilities. Back on Earth, engineer Hyejin Yoon completed her greatest creation. She called it the Singularity Cannon. The weapon created a tiny black hole that existed for only a fraction of a second, but in that moment it destroyed everything within a kilometer. The power requirements were enormous. Only the largest battleships could carry one. The first test of the cannon happened at the Battle of Kepler 442. A Velkar fortress station guarded a strategic system. It was protected by shields that could withstand nuclear weapons. Admiral Jiwon Nam's flagship carried the Singularity Cannon. "Fire when ready," Jiwon ordered. The cannon charged for 30 seconds. Space around the ship seemed to bend and twist. Then a beam of twisted light shot out and hit the fortress station. For one moment, a tiny black hole appeared where the station's shield generator stood. The hole swallowed everything around it before collapsing. The shields failed. The station broke apart and exploded. The Velkar had never seen such a weapon. Fear began to spread through their ranks for the first time in the war. Grand Admiral Ji-ho Park, now in overall command of all human forces, launched Operation Broken Chain. It was the most ambitious military campaign in human history. 30 systems would be attacked simultaneously. The goal was to destroy Velkar supply lines and cut their empire into isolated pieces. Human fleets equipped with ghost drives appeared in systems the Velkar thought were safe. Raiders hit convoys across dozens of star systems. Resistance fighters on occupied worlds sabotaged production facilities. The Velkar logistics network, which had fed their war machine for years, collapsed in days. High Imperator Rekthal could not believe what was happening. These humans had been beaten, blockaded, and bombed for years. They should have been broken. Instead, they had become stronger. It made no sense to his logical mind. He made a decision that shocked his advisors. He would personally lead a massive counterattack on Earth. If the human homeworld fell, their resistance would crumble. He gathered the largest Velkar fleet ever assembled. Over 500 warships would overwhelm Earth's defenses. The Battle of Terra began on a clear morning. Velkar ships emerged from jump points all around Earth. Alarms screamed across every human defense station. This was the moment everyone had feared. The Velkar had come to finish what they started, but Earth was not the same planet the Velkar had blockaded years ago. Hidden orbital platforms activated, bristling with weapons. The Third Fleet jumped in from Proxima. The Fourth Fleet arrived from Kepler. Ships equipped with ghost drives appeared behind the Velkar lines. Ascended pilots launched from carriers in waves. The space around Earth became hell. Ships exploded every second. Energy beams crossed the darkness like deadly light shows. Missiles tracked targets through the chaos. Both sides poured everything they had into the battle. Admiral Jiwan Nam commanded the defense from her flagship. She saw the Velkar command ship, massive and powerful, coordinating the alien fleet. If that ship fell, the Velkar would lose their coordination advantage. "All ships follow me," she ordered. Her ship charged straight toward Vrekthal's vessel. It was a suicide run and everyone knew it. But her crew followed without hesitation. Human ships swarmed the command vessel. They took hit after hit, shields failing, hulls breaching. G1's ship was burning and venting atmosphere. She could have turned back. Instead, she accelerated. "It's been an honor serving with you all," she told her crew. Then she rammed her burning flagship directly into Rekthal's command ship. The explosion was visible from Earth's surface. The command ship survived but was crippled. Rekthal himself was injured, his perfect body broken and burned. The Velkar fleet fell into confusion without his direct leadership. The human forces pressed their advantage. Ascended pilots tore through enemy formations. The Singularity cannon fired again and again, each shot destroying a major Velkar vessel. The tide of the battle shifted. As night fell on Earth, the Velkar fleet retreated. They had lost over 200 ships. The humans had lost nearly as many, but they had won. Earth remained free. Rekthal, recovering in his medical bay, looked at the casualty reports. For the first time in his long life, he felt something he had never experienced before. Doubt. These humans had been marked for extinction. They were supposed to be weak. But they were winning. On Earth, people celebrated in the streets. Grand Admiral Jiho Park, now in his 60s, watched the celebrations with mixed feelings. They had won a great victory, but the cost was terrible. Admiral Jiwan Nam had sacrificed herself. Thousands more had died in the battle. He thought about the words he had spoken years ago. Survival and revenge. They had survived. Now revenge was within reach, but looking at the cost, Jiho wondered what they would become if revenge was all they pursued. 5 years had passed since the Velkar blockaded Earth. 5 years of living like prisoners on their own planet. The aliens controlled the space around Earth and had taken over major cities. But humans refused to surrender. They learned to fight in the shadows. Captain Minho Choi drifted through the asteroid belt in his ship, the Phoenix Echo. The ship was small and looked like it was held together with spare parts and hope. That was exactly the point. The Velkar ignored ships that looked worthless. They had no idea this broken vessel was the most wanted human ship in the solar system. Minho checked his sensors carefully. A Velkar supply convoy was passing through the belt, heading toward their forces on Mars. 3 cargo ships protected by 2 warships. Bad odds, but Minho had faced worse. "Ready the weapons," he told his crew of 12. They were all people who had lost everything to the Velkar. Some had lost families. Others had lost their homes. All of them had lost their fear of death. The Phoenix Echo powered up its weapons but kept them hidden. Minho waited until the convoy was deep in the asteroid field. Then he attacked. His ship appeared suddenly behind the rearmost cargo vessel and fired. The shots hit the engine section perfectly. The cargo ship went dark and started drifting. The Velkar warships turned to respond, but Minho was already moving. He flew between two massive asteroids, using them as cover. The Velkar fired, but their shots hit rock instead of his ship. Minho came around the other side and hit the second cargo ship. Now the Velkar were angry. Both warships chased after him. This was what Minho wanted. He led them deeper into the asteroid field, flying through gaps that were barely wider than his ship. The Velkar ships were bigger and could not follow as easily. One of them clipped an asteroid and its shields flared. Minho looped back around in a move that would have been impossible for the rigid Velkar to predict. He came up behind the damaged warship and fired everything he had at the weakened shields. They collapsed and his missiles tore into the ship's hull. The warship exploded in a ball of fire. The second warship retreated, calling for backup. But by the time help arrived, Minho and the convoy's cargo were long gone. Back on Earth, engineer Hyejin Yoon examined the stolen Velkar equipment. She had not slept properly in months. Dark circles ringed her eyes, but they still shone with intelligence. She took apart every piece of alien technology she could get her hands on. "I think I've got it," she told her team. In front of her was a device that looked like a black sphere covered in strange symbols. The Velkar use quantum entanglement for their sensors. But there's a gap in the detection field. If we can generate a specific frequency, we can slip through without them seeing us. It took her another 3 months to build a working prototype. She called it the Ghost Drive. The first test nearly killed her when the device overloaded and exploded. The second test worked perfectly. A ship equipped with the Ghost Drive became completely invisible to Velkar sensors. Commander Jiho Park, now leading all human resistance forces, saw the potential immediately. "How many can you build?" "With the resources we have? Maybe 50 in the next year. Make it 100. I don't care what it takes." On occupied Earth, General Yoon Ho Shin coordinated resistance fighters in the ruined cities. The Velkar had taken over major population centers and were using humans as slave labor to extract Earth's resources. But the Velkar made a mistake. They thought humans would be easy to control. They were wrong. Yunho walked through the underground tunnels beneath Seoul. Thousands of fighters lived down here, hidden from Velkar patrols. They had weapons taken from dead aliens. They had explosives made from stolen materials. Most importantly, they had anger that burned like a nuclear fire. "The supply depot in Sector 7 is vulnerable," Yunho told his lieutenants. "They rotate guards every 12 hours. During the rotation, there's a 3-minute gap. That's our window." The attack happened at midnight. Resistance fighters emerged from tunnels directly under the Velkar depot. They planted explosives on the ammunition storage and the vehicle bay. Then they disappeared back into the tunnels before the Velkar even knew they were there. The explosions lit up the Seoul night sky. The depot burned for 3 days. The Velkar sent search teams into the tunnels, but they found only traps and ambushes. For every human they killed, the resistance killed 5 Velkar. This was repeated in every occupied city. Beijing, New York, London, Mumbai. The pattern was always the same. Attack fast, hit hard, disappear before the enemy could respond. The Velkar called it cowardice. Humans called it survival. Dr. Sumin Lee continued her research into Velkar biology and psychology. She had access to bodies from the battlefield and recordings of their communications. What she found was fascinating and terrifying. The Velkar were not individuals the way humans were. They were connected through a biological network that linked their minds. This made them incredibly coordinated but also predictable. They could not think outside their programming. When something unexpected happened, they froze for a moment while their collective mind decided how to respond. "That freeze is their weakness," Suman explained to Jiho. "If we can keep hitting them with situations they've never encountered, they can't adapt fast enough." Jiho smiled grimly. "Chaos is what they said made us weak. Let's show them what chaos can really do." The resistance began using tactics that made no logical sense to the Velkar. Ships would attack and then run away without finishing the fight. Ground forces would strike targets with no strategic value. Humans would sacrifice valuable positions to defend worthless ones. To the Velkar, this was madness. To humans, this was misdirection. Minho Choi became a legend among the raiders. His Phoenix Echo hit 17 Velkar supply convoys in 6 months. The Velkar put a massive bounty on him. They sent hunter ships to track him down. Minho stayed 1 step ahead of all of them, but the war was taking its toll. Mino had lost his wife and daughter in the first Velkar bombardment of Earth. Every night he saw their faces. Every day he killed more aliens. He wondered if there would be anything left of him when the war finally ended. Hyejin finished building her 100th ghost drive. She installed it in ships personally, making sure each one worked perfectly. She remembered the people who died because she had not invented this technology sooner. That guilt drove her to work until she collapsed from exhaustion. General Yunho led the Seoul Uprising, the largest coordinated attack of the resistance. On the same day at the same hour, resistance fighters in every occupied city struck at Velkar command centers. In Seoul alone, they destroyed 3 major facilities and killed hundreds of Velkar officers. The uprising cost thousands of human lives, but it achieved something important. It proved to the Velkar that humans could not be controlled. It proved to humans that they could still fight back. High Imperator Rekthal watched reports of the uprising with cold fury. These creatures refused to accept their fate. They were like insects that kept crawling even after being stepped on. He ordered his forces to increase the bombardments. Entire city blocks were destroyed in retaliation. But for every human the Velkar killed, 10 more joined the resistance. In the darkness of space, 7 colony ships slipped past the Velkar blockade. They were equipped with Hyejin's ghost drives and carried 50,000 humans each. Their mission was to establish hidden colonies in distant star systems. If Earth fell, humanity would survive. The Velkar detected and destroyed 2 of the ships. 5 made it through. They disappeared into the vastness of space, carrying the seeds of humanity's future. Jiho Park stood in his command center and looked at the maps showing resistance activity. Red marks covered Earth and the surrounding space. Each mark was a battle, a sacrifice, a small victory. They were losing ground slowly, but they were not losing hope. "How long can we keep this up?" his second-in-command asked. Jiho thought about the colony ships now racing toward distant stars. He thought about the thousands of people fighting in tunnels and asteroid belts. He thought about the rage and determination burning in every human heart. "As long as it takes," he said. The stars above Earth had always seemed peaceful. For centuries, humans looked up and wondered if they were alone. On a cold morning in 2287, they got their answer. The answer came with fire and death. Commander Jiho Park stood on the bridge of the defense station hovering near Earth's moon. He was drinking coffee when the alarm started screaming. His cup shattered on the floor. On the screens in front of him, massive ships appeared from nowhere. They were enormous, larger than anything humans had ever built. Their dark hulls reflected no light, making them look like holes in space itself. Jiho grabbed the communication device. "All stations, battle positions now." His voice was steady, but his hands shook. He had trained for this moment his whole life, but nothing prepared him for the reality of it. Dr. Sumin Lee was in her laboratory on Earth when the broadcast came through. She was a scientist who studied alien languages and signals. For years, she had been listening to strange patterns from deep space. Now those patterns made sense. The alien ships were talking to each other and she could understand them. Her face went white as she decoded the message. She ran to find Ambassador Daeho Kang, who was in an emergency meeting with world leaders. She burst into the room without knocking. "They're here to kill us," she said. "All of us. Every human." Daeho looked at her with confusion. "What are you talking about?" "We haven't even made contact yet." Suman pulled up the translations on the main screen. "I've been monitoring their communications. They call themselves the Velkar Empire. They've been watching us for months. They say we're dangerous because we're too chaotic, too emotional, too unpredictable. Their council voted yesterday. The decision was unanimous. Humanity must be destroyed." Before anyone could respond, the first weapons fired. Beams of pure energy shot from the Velkar ships and struck the moon stations. Jiho watched in horror as 3 of his stations exploded in silent fury. Thousands of people died in seconds. The blast waves reached his station, making everything shake. "Return fire," Jiho ordered. Human weapons fired back, but the missiles and energy beams seemed to do nothing to the alien shields. The Velkar technology was too advanced. Their ships moved through space like dancers, avoiding every shot with ease. On Earth, people looked up and saw flashes of light near the moon. Then the news channels showed the truth. War had come to humanity. Cities erupted in panic. Some people ran for shelters. Others stood frozen, unable to believe what they were seeing. The Velkar High Imperator Vrekthal watched from his command ship. He was tall, with skin like gray stone and eyes that glowed with a cold blue light. To him, humans were mistakes of evolution. They felt too much. They argued with each other. They had no single unified mind like his people. This made them unpredictable, and the Velkar hated things they could not predict. "Send the declaration," Rekthal ordered. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. Across every human communication channel, on every screen and device on Earth and beyond, a message appeared. Ambassador Deho Kang translated it for everyone to hear. His voice cracked with emotion as he read the words. "People of Earth, this is the Velkar Empire. You are a corruption in the order of the universe. Your species shows emotion where there should be logic. You fight among yourselves where there should be unity. You create chaos where there should be structure. We have seen civilizations like yours before. They always spread their disorder to others. We cannot allow this. We swear upon the eternal void that guides our empire that humanity will be extinguished. You have no path forward but extinction. This is not cruelty. This is necessity." Silence fell across Earth, then came the rage. Humans were many things, but they were not willing to die quietly. Jiho Park saw more Velkar ships arriving. Hundreds of them now filled the space around Earth's moon. He knew he could not win this fight, but he could save lives. "All civilian ships evacuate now. All military vessels cover their escape." The lunar colonies held 40,000 people. Most were families of soldiers and scientists. Jiho ordered every available ship to start loading civilians. His military ships formed a wall between the Velkar and the fleeing refugees. The Velkar did not care about honor or fair fights. They fired on the escaping civilian ships. Jiho's forces threw themselves in the way, taking hits meant for defenseless people. Ships exploded one after another. Good people died buying time for others to live. Suman Lee worked frantically in her lab while the battle raged above. She studied every piece of Velkar communication she could find. There had to be a weakness. Everything had a weakness. After hours of analysis, she found something interesting. The Velkar ships moved in perfect coordination. Too perfect. They were all connected somehow, thinking as one massive mind. She called Jiho on his command ship. "Commander, I found something. They're predictable. All of them move like they're following a script. If we can figure out the pattern, we can be one step ahead." Jiho dodged another blast that nearly destroyed his bridge. "Can you send me the patterns?" "Already done. Check your tactical computer." Jiho pulled up the data. Suman was right. Once you saw the pattern, it was obvious. The Velkar never deviated from their battle formations. They never took risks. They never surprised their enemy. Humans could use this. For 3 days the battle continued. Earth's forces could not push the Velkar back, but they made them work for every inch of space. Jiho managed to evacuate 30,000 civilians before the Velkar blockaded all escape routes. 10,000 people died on the lunar colonies when the Velkar bombers finally reached the surface. On the 4th day, Jiho received orders to retreat. Earth's military leaders had made a decision. They could not win in open battle. They needed time to prepare, to learn, to adapt. All remaining forces would pull back to Earth and create a defensive line. As Jiho's damaged ship limped back toward Earth, he looked at the alien fleet now surrounding his home. They had lost this first battle badly, but something stirred in his chest. It was not despair. It was determination. The Velkar thought humans were too chaotic to survive. They were about to learn that chaos was humanity's greatest weapon. In the wreckage and death of this first encounter, something new was being born. Humans had been scattered people of one planet. Now they had a single purpose that united them all: survival. And after survival, revenge.